Welcome to another episode of Virginia Outdoors, and I'm your host, Farmer D. I'm here with Scott Thorlin from Persimmons Hollow Farms. I met his wife, Serena, at one of our earlier episodes at Culpeper Farmers Market. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name's Scott Thorlin. My wife Serena told me that we'd be talking here real soon, so I look forward to it. We're a small farm in Rixieville. We started working with the farmers markets a few years back, but we've been keeping bees since we moved out in Rixieville 5 or 6 years ago. And one of the things that we did was we expanded because we had a bee yard out on the farm, and then we wanted a second bee yard as a jump yard, or also just because we had more hives. And we approached, and actually it worked out perfectly. Verdun's beekeeper left to do other opportunities, and we timed within 2 weeks, and they said, we absolutely would love to have you as a beekeeper. So we moved out here to Verdun Outdoor Bound, which is I don't even know how big it is, but they've got camps and Slide for Life and summer camps, and they have an outdoor venue, they have concerts, and they have this bee yard.
Yeah, I noticed, you do have several beehives, different sizes and different colors. I like the colors. I think the bees like the pastel colors. Is that not so true?
They do, and a lot of times I will paint different colors on beehives because they mean different things. Like you see the yellow ones?
Yes.
That right there tells me that that's a honey super, and I'm pulling super. But these bees here and these hives here I use for teaching. So I try to mentor, because I was mentored in backyard bees up in Gainesville.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I think I might have seen them. They have hundreds of hives?
they have a lot of yards. I don't know how many hives they have, but when I first started beekeeping, I joke about it. This is kind of my internship. Was I spent a day with George once a week during bee season for the first 2 years, and we were working 7 different yards. So he would basically reach out and he'd say, "Hey, I'll meet you at Lazy Brook, or I'll meet you at Oakland, or I'll meet you at so and so." And I'd meet him out there, and we'd spend the day, and we'd work hives, and I would learn exponentially. And one of the things that I felt was, he paid it forward, now I need to pay it forward. So we use this yard to teach people how to get started into bees. That's why there's not that many hives here. And the back hives here are actually younger hives. These were baby hives at the beginning of the year, and they're growing up. This front one is a mature hive.
Now, if someone is interested into getting into beekeeping, what do you suggest that they do?
Well, the first thing is they need to make sure that they're interested in beekeeping. Everybody wants to keep bees until they realize the work. So
Sure.
I always joke with them. I tell them, look, here's the deal. I'm going to put you, it's going to be 90 degrees, 90% humidity. I'm going to put you in a bee suit. I'm going to give you a can of fire. We're going to go into the yards, and we're going to get stung.
Sure.
And at the end of 4 hours, if you're still serious, then we can talk.
Yeah,
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel, because I have bees as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Have you ever been stung before?
Oh, I think I got about a 50-50 chance of getting stung every time I walk into a bee yard.
Yeah.
But I've never really been hit hard. I think one time I got hit hard. In fact, I was with George Wilson when that happened, and we both kind of tapped out. It was a feral bee, and we were going to relocate them, and they got the better of us. And
Yeah, understand. When I first started getting into beekeeping, my goal was to never be stung. That lasted for about 2 weeks.
yeah, I'm surprised it lasted 2 weeks. Lasted me about 15 seconds.
Right, yeah. But it happens. I mean, if you're going to have bees, that's just part of it. You're going to get stung, and you get used to it. Not that you get stung every time, but you get desensitized by it.
Well, another thing too, and a lot of people don't realize this, your demeanor inside the bee yard will determine how the bee's demeanor is. Bees, like dogs, like horses, like any other type of an animal, they live off of the way you react. So if you're stressed out, or if you are clanky, or if you're moving abruptly, they see you as a threat, they're going to act the same way. But if you move with a purpose, and you move slow and deliberate, and you only take the actions that you need to do, they're going to respond accordingly.
Well, just like most wild animals, they have a sixth sense,
Exactly.
and I noticed that when I first got started into beekeeping, I was nervous the whole time. I'm like, I didn't want to go and open a hive. It was mentally, I had to get myself prepared to do that.
Absolutely.
But now I look forward to it. I really look forward to opening a hive to see exactly what they're doing.
Exactly, and there's a whole concept that it's therapeutic. So I'm a veteran. There's veterans organizations, and one of the things that the veterans organizations have come to realize is that beekeeping for some vets is actually very therapeutic, and a lot of people don't realize this also. The government has been teaching veterans to keep bees since the Civil War. In every major war, veterans get pushed, and as an option, as an agricultural option, bees are incredibly important to agriculture. And to this day, there's two organizations that I work with, and it's Hives to Heroes, which
Okay.
basically will get a veteran started, and Heroes to Hives, which is basically a teaching tool that they use for, maybe, let's just say, that the veterans that have some experience in beekeeping, but they want to go farther. Because it's a great opportunity, and the bees are incredibly important to agriculture.
They are. We need them for our pollinators. We need them for many different reasons. Me personally, I don't even have white sugar at my house.
Yeah.
I only use
Yeah.
honey for my teas or for making preserves or things of that nature, even for baking.
Yeah.
And it's a healthy option, and I encourage everyone to use as much honey as possible. We had talked to your wife the other day, and she was saying that the honey that you buy at stores, you have no idea what's actually in the hive, or what is preservatives or watered down or cut with. A lot
Yeah.
of times they use corn sugars and stuff.
It's terrible, and it's really sad. And I tell people all the time, manufacturers, they want to make it cheap, they want to make it fast, and they want to make it with a shelf life. Raw honey is not easy to make,
Right.
and it doesn't have a shelf life. Raw honey will crystallize.
Right.
But at the same token, to make it cheap, fast, with a shelf life, you take out all the best parts of it. You take out the pollen, you take out the propolis, you heat it to a temperature that takes all the flavor esterates. And I challenge anybody, you go and get some honey that is very inexpensive honey, crystal clear, very light, and you taste that, and then you taste some raw honey.
Right.
You're going to see the difference. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I had some friends over a couple of years ago, and we did a honey tasting test. I gave them some honey from my bees, and we had some honey that my cousin had bought from the store, and they could not believe the difference. And I also had some maple syrup that I had got from some friends from Vermont, and they're like, "Wow, this is it." I was like, "What you getting from the store has all kinds of stuff, colors, preservatives, things of that nature." I did a little research before today, and I found out that for a bee to create a teaspoon of honey, they have to visit 127,000 flowers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of flowers.
Yeah, I'd never heard it that way, but the way I heard it was, for a bees to make a teaspoon of honey, it takes 12 adult bees their entire life to harvest 1 teaspoon of honey. And they have to fly, a bee will fly 5,500 miles in its life, and it's a short life.
Right. Speaking of which, what is the lifespan of a bee?
Well, you really have two different kinds of bees, especially in this environment. You have summer bees, which are going to live anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and people argue a little bit less and a little bit more. But you have winter bees. So, like right now, once the summer solstice hits, the bees are already starting to think about winter. And essentially, what they're going to do is they're going to work up to the point where they're going to have winter bees, and those winter bees are going to maintain the hive until spring comes back. So they're going to live a few months. But they're not out flying 5,500 miles. They're literally in the hive trying to stay warm with the queen and trying to endure winter. So when spring comes, they can come out, they can collect some pollen, because pollen is big for baby bees.
Gotcha.
Collect some nectar, and then get that hive regenerated.
Yeah. Speaking of baby bees, how many eggs does a queen bee lay in a day?
Is this a test for
It's not a test.
master test?
No. I heard about close to 2,000 eggs a day is what a queen lays.
I think that's about right, because I had always been told it's around 1,500.
Yeah, well, it all depends on the age of the bee. And how long does a queen bee live?
Well, so again, and I always joke, you asked 10 beekeepers a bee question, and you'll get 12 answers.
Of course you do. Yeah.
But I think a queen bee is going to live anywhere from 3 to 5 years.
Exactly.
But I think she's only going to be really productive, and we got them all over right now.
Yeah, they are. They're everywhere.
Attracted to us. I think she's only really productive the first 2 years. In fact, I know some beekeepers that will replace the queens every year.
Okay.
I don't do that. I'm kind of what they call a hands-off beekeeper. The bees know better to do than I do. And in fact, the big joke is bees have been surviving beekeepers for centuries.
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's not the other way around, you know. So
and bees are smart. I mean,
yeah.
they are survivalists. They take half the hive, and some people may know the term swarming.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about swarming and exactly what that is?
So a lot of times what will happen in a beehive is they will start to they'll have an abundance of resources, or the hive will be a little bit tight for them. So think about, when the family's growing up, they need a bigger house.
Gotcha, you got to add on an addition.
They got to add on an addition. So the queen will actually take half the hive, leave the hive, but before she leaves, she'll lay eggs.
Okay.
She will lay queen eggs.
Okay.
And when you go in a hive, you can see a queen cell, they call it.
Right.
So that is basically her daughter or daughters, because they'll be anywhere from 7 to 9 to whatever. She will lay enough to ensure that there's a queen for the hive, because the hive won't be able to survive without a queen. And then she'll take the hive and she will leave, and then she'll establish a new place.
So basically, the queen is paying it forward. They're leaving some hierarchy for the next hive. So when you say that they'll take the hive, they're actually not actually taking the hive, but just taking half of the bees. And
they're taking half the bees.
And where do they go?
Well, they will typically they'll find a place and they'll perch basically on a spot, and the scout bees will look for the best place that they can live. And once the decision is made, and the bees themselves make the decision, this is the best place they go, they will leave that perch, and then they will fly, and then they'll establish a hive wherever it is, in a hollow trunk or in a hollowed out tree, whatever it is that they decide, in somebody's soffit in their house. We've seen that too.
Oh, sure. Is that what they call swarming?
That's swarming. Swarming is when the queen leaves with half the hive, finds a perch, and that's when people will say, I have a swarm in my backyard.
Got it.
Can a beekeeper come and take it? And for us, it's free bees.
Sure.
No pun intended. Pun completely intended.
Yeah.
But then we'll go and we'll harvest them, and we'll give them a new home. So typically what we'll do is we'll try to get, and once you get the queen inside of a box, the bees will stay with the queen, and it's
because of the pheromones. Because
it's
that's what they will stay.
Watching them, because what they'll do is when we get the queen in the box and we got her kind of secure, the other bees will actually turn towards the box, face the box, and they will fan and they will let the pheromones out, letting all the other bees know this is the direction.
This is where she is.
Join the queen. And what we'll try to do is we'll try to get as many of the bees in there as we can, and then we will jump the box. And we'll move the box. And there's some other tricks that other beekeepers use to try to keep the hive. But the hive can still abscond. They can still just decide,
we don't want to be here.
We don't want to be here. We already got a place picked out.
Gotcha.
So, and then they'll leave. But it is nature in action. And I always tell people, too, if you have any question about divinity, study bees.
Study bees. Can you tell us about the different types of bees in a hive? I know it's not, how many queen are actually in the hive, and what are the other types of bees that are in the hive? Yeah,
generally there's only one queen in the hive. You hear stories about an older queen that wasn't killed, or a competing queen, or sometimes we have these new hives that are like kind of joined. And but reality is you have one queen in the hive, and then you have worker bees, and they're all girls. Every
bees.
Bee in there is a child of the queen.
Gotcha.
Once they are established.
Sure.
It could be the old queen. And then you have drones, and drones are only there in the summer, really, and the only thing the drone do is procreate.
So the drones are actually the male bees.
They're the male bees. Yeah, they are the male bees. They don't have stingers. They're big. They're husky. They got big eyes, and they can fly like a dart.
Gotcha.
And
I know somebody like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I think now let's put on some suits and maybe take a look inside to see who's actually doing all the work. We reap the benefit of it, but the bees are the ones that's actually doing all the work.
Yeah, and I would tell you, one of my mentors, Carla Eisen, we would go into the hives and I'd say, look at they're doing well, or something like this, and she goes, Scott, they're girls.
Yeah,
the
ladies.
And then I've learned, really,
they
do all the work in the hive. They care for the young, everything like that, and it really is. You have to acknowledge the fact that all these ladies are working hard to give us some honey and a little pollen and a little propolis. And
well, I got some news for you. The women do all the work out here too.
We gotta be honest.
Let's be honest.
Truthful.
They're doing it. All right. Well, let's put on some suits and take a look inside.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
You want to see my raggedy hair? Thank you, Adam. Now that we put on our bee suits, and I'm definitely going to put my hoodie on, and we're going to let Scott open this up and show us what's inside. In the right, Scott?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So this is our standard hive, and this is a young hive. This was a nuke earlier this year. I harvested these hives from one of the hives out at my farm. We got the green, here's the bottom board. This is a brood box. These are all brood boxes. This is a deep and a shallow. And this right here is a queen excluder. This right here prevents the queen from coming up here and laying eggs. And I paint this yellow because it lets me know I got honey on board.
When you say brood box, what does that mean, Scott?
This is kind of their home. This is where they lay the eggs. This is where the larvae, this is where they hatch. This is really the production area as far as bees, making more bees and supporting bees. You know, bees go through a life cycle in their 4 to 6 weeks, and they do everything from cleaning to taking care of their brothers and sisters to harvesting honey, everything. They just, it's a slow evolution of life, and it's just a beautiful, wonderful thing to see. So we take this cover off, and I shouldn't have tapped because I'm waking them up.
Wake up!
So
Oh yeah! And they're off.
Okay, so
Break. Hold up. We're firing up the smoker, because when you open a beehive, you should always have some smoke, and that distracts them, and that's the best thing to have is some smoke.
yeah, you know what, it does a few things. The first thing it does is it kind of confuses the bees, because the bees use a lot of their communication is based on pheromones, and that smoke masks the pheromones being transferred. And it also can kind of disguise you, because, you know, if I get stung on the hand, I can kind of smoke that area and it covers up the pheromone a little bit, the targeting pheromone. The other thing that it does is the bees, some of the bees will think that the hive might be on fire, and what they will do is they will go in there and they will get some honey in case they have to evacuate, and then they'll fly off if they lose the hive and restart another hive. So when we smoke the bees, what you'll see is the bees will start to go down into the hive. I usually don't use a lot of smoke because it also kind of, if the bees are calm, I don't need to use the smoke, but you should always have the smoke ready.
So basically, when the bees smell the smoke, they kind of grab some lunch for the journey.
They're like, grab lunch because we might be going somewhere.
All right, now we got the smoker going. Let's go in here and open up and take a look at some comb and see if we see some honey. Yeah, I see a bunch of bees here on the top here.
Yeah, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll smoke the top, see how they move?
Oh yeah.
And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of call this knocking at the front door. I'm just letting them know and just kind of throwing them off, and I'm gonna put some gloves on. A lot of times I don't wear gloves, sometimes I'll wear gloves, but I think today I'll wear gloves.
Yeah, sometimes once they get active, and
yeah, they will get active and they will get ornery, but I think these guys are okay.
yeah, I can see now that smoke really calmed them down. There were a bunch of bees on top and a bunch of bees in the front, but now they kind of calmed down. They're all inside now, which is a good thing.
So this is the inner cover.
Okay.
So we're gonna pop the inner cover up, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna see the bees, and there's a hive beetle, which is a pest. Oh, there's a few hive beetles.
Yeah. Wow.
There are, you know, the decline of bees and the things that bees have to deal with. I call it the 3 Ps.
Okay, the 3 Ps. Okay, which is?
Pests, which are the hive beetles, but really which the dangerous pest for honeybees right there are the varroa destructor mites, and we have to treat them. In fact, I'm going to treat these bees today for varroa. Look at her right there giving off her scent.
Wow, I see it now.
And then the other one is poor nutrition, because
Poor nutrition.
what's happening is we're getting to have so much, the agricultural land is so much monocultural that we could be in the middle of a almond farm or in the middle of a buckwheat farm or something like this. But once the flowers pop up and they go back down, there's nothing for the bees to eat. So they're fighting nutrition. And then the last one, and this is the one that I think we can deal with immediately right off the bat, is the use of pesticides and chemicals.
Well, I know the pesticides and chemicals were destructive to the bald eagle and other raptors, the fishing industry. So yeah, we can definitely try to stay away from pesticides of any types.
And part of me, I just don't understand why it's, there's so many natural ways to do things and be smart about things. I just don't know why we rely on chemicals so much, and it's sad because I think chemicals are going to be
the downfall of.
Yeah, I think 30 years from now, like we used to say with smoking,
Yeah.
it used to be everybody smoked, and then people figured out how dangerous smoking was, and that it decreased significantly. I think it's going to be the same thing with pesticides and chemicals. They're going to realize how dangerous they are, and then we're going to cut back on them significantly.
Now, what is this, Scott? Is this a comb that has some honey in it?
That is, and I'm going to look to see if I can find a full comb.
Alrighty.
This one has more on. So here's one that's got, if you look in there, you can see. I always put
let's walk around here, Scott.
At my back so I can look in there. And what you can see is the nectar. So it's not really yet honey because it's not capped. So what they do is they get the nectar from a flower, they put it in their honey gullet, and then what they're going to do is they're going to fly back here and they're going to give that to one of their sisters, and then she's going to put it in here.
When you say honey gullet, is that a fancy way of saying gut?
Yes. Yes, exactly. They got two stomachs. They got one that they carry honey with, and they have another one that they actually use to feed themselves with. And they'll bring that honey back, and then they'll give it to them. But when it's in their belly, they're processing it. There's enzymes in there that is getting ready to change the nature of the honey. And then when they put the nectar in here, what it will do is they want to get it to dehydrate to a certain point, and then they're going to cap it. And let me see if I can find a cap frame.
Alrighty.
So these are young bees, or I should say this is a young colony. So when we have a young colony, they're really just starting to get used to working honey. So there's not a lot of honey. We haven't had this super on here very long. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this one here and we're going to put it right here.
Okay.
Because what I don't want the queen to come up and get into there and then she's trapped on top, because this is what we call a queen excluder.
Okay.
This right here prevents a queen from coming up into the honey and laying into the honey.
And the reason they call this a queen excluder is because the queen is bigger than the female bees, which are the worker bees, and she can't get through there.
Yeah. And
Got it.
We shook some of the hive beetles off.
Oh yeah, these got a lot of honey in it. This one here may be capped, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that one. A lot of times the honey is typically on the outside.
Okay.
So this should have some.
When you say outside, you mean the outside frame in the box?
Exactly. The outside frame in the box.
And what is this?
This is a hive tool. This is called a J tool.
Okay. Woo, lots of bees.
Lots of bees. And we want to get, every movement we make, we try to make a methodical movement. We're not just being haphazard at what we're doing. So this honey isn't capped, but there's a lot of honey. That's capped.
Got it.
Look at that right
Nice.
there. That is beautiful. So this honey is this is their pantry. This is what they're going to put. This is what they're going to survive off a winter in. And what they do is when the nectar gets to a point where it becomes honey and it's less than 18% water in there, so it's dehydrated a little bit, then they're going to cap over it and that's going to seal it. And that honey right there will last. It will never expire. It doesn't ever turn bad. They found honey in places before when they've uncapped it, it's still good.
Now, we were talking to Serena at the farmer's market. She was telling us that you take the cap off of the honey to make some of the molds. Is this the actual cap that you remove?
Yeah. So what we'll do is there's a few different ways to do it, but if I had a tool, I would take like a knife and I would cut across and I would just remove this top layer. and I would take this wax and I'd put it off to the side, and I'd do the same thing on the other side, and then I'd put it into an extractor, and then we'd spin. That little girl let me know she's there. It would spin, and then we get the honey out. But we take that cappings, this wax right here that covers it, and then we would separate that, and you'd heat up some water, and when the water cools, the honey floats to the top, the water stays in the middle, and then the water stays in the middle, and then any excess honey is down at the bottom. And you can actually take that excess honey, you can use it for baking honey, or you can feed it back to the bees if you want, and that's typically what I do. Like you said, I try not to feed my bees. I try to let my bees, I support my bees to let them do what they need to do to get through winter.
And Serena showed us that certain times of the year, depending on the flower, that the honey is different colors. She showed us some that was buckwheat honey that was a darker color.
So the color of the honey is dependent on what the bees got the honey from, because remember, there's also pollen in there. And if you saw that capping, that is a very white wax. And you see the yellow wax that you always picture in your head.
Sure.
There's a lot of pollen in there.
Okay.
So the color is dependent on the nectar, and the pollen the color of the honey is dependent on the nectar that the honey came from, and also the pollen that's in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to flip this box over. When I go into a hive, I want to see brood. I want to make sure that queen is good. So I'm going to check this one right here.
When you say brood, you mean baby bees?
Baby bees. See, this is undrawn foundation.
Okay.
They haven't got to that. Remember, this is a young hive. I just put this on not long ago. And we've seen the honey. Now what we want to see.
Woo! This thing is loaded with bees in here. Wow, it look like all these frames are full of honey as well.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can see some foundation. This is that wax that we're talking about right there.
Okay, gotcha. So that's what they use to make this is actually cone, and then they put that's what they put the honey in, and also use it for putting the baby bees and stuff.
Yeah, they make their brood with it. So we're gonna do is we're gonna try to open up. That's all honey.
That's all honey to me. Maybe a brood in the bottom box.
Yeah.
These bees are getting active.
Yeah, they are. And we try to be as calm with the bees as possible. It's kind of a little bit invasive when we're going into that hive, so we don't go in all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the smoker is your best friend.
So I can already tell there's brood in here. Brood, we're talking about little baby.
Oh yeah, I can see it, a different color.
Yeah, definitely darker than white cappings.
Even though you may not see smoke coming out of here, but they can still smell, and that helps a lot. Woo! Now we're talking. Now we got some brood. Come on over here. We can see the brood there. Lots of brood.
So all of this right here,
different color for sure.
They're baby bees ready to be born. And what ends up happening is the queen will lay an egg, and it will be an egg for about 3 days, and then it will be a larva, and then they'll cap over, and it will hatch in 8 days.
We good here. Just close it back up, and we'll go over there and we'll...
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close them up.
Yeah, let's close them up, because they're getting a little riled up a little bit.
Yeah, and the other reason we're going to close them up is really what we wanted to see is the health of the colony. That's all we wanted to see, and we saw the brood. We didn't see any significant pests. So we know the colony's healthy, and we're going to move on.
I tell you what I see 1,000 bees swarming all around this suit. Ladies and gentlemen, the smoker is one important thing, but most important is the daggone suit. You talk about bees. The first thing you do when you decide you want to be a beekeeper, you get yourself a suit. The best suit money can buy. But I have seen people without suits. I've seen people doing bees without suits, but those obviously are experts. I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'll go into a hive without a suit. But I don't know how many bees are around me, but they're, thank God for this suit. Definitely. Wow. When people say busy as a bee, now I understand all the work they do. They fly 5 miles to get nectar, and then they go to 127,000 flowers just to get 1 teaspoon of honey. So the next time you waste some honey, remember and think about how many flowers a bee went to just so you could get some honey. Unbelievable.
So what we're going to do is we're going to let these guys,
Yeah, we're gonna let
these guys relax a little bit.
we're gonna let them relax a little bit.
And then when we're doing a bee yard, we could do up to 20 hives in, 4 or 5 hours. And you get into the rhythm and you get into the pace. And it ends up being, it doesn't sound like it right now, but it can be actually a very calming experience.
I'm pretty sure everyone can hear all the noise from the bees. There's bees all over the mic. About how many bees are in a hive, or average, depending on the size of the hive?
A fully mature hive is probably around 60,000 bees.
60,000 bees. That's a lot of bees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the queen. So basically, the queen, like you said earlier, can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. So there are 2,000 being born, 2,000 leaving.
Well, you got the life cycle. So the
Yeah.
queen will lay, and the queen will lay depending on what time of year it is.
Uh-huh.
So the queen will lay X amount of eggs if she needs to. Like in spring,
Well, this concludes our bee experience. The reason why we're here is because we had to move. There was just way too many bees, and they started to get in a little crack in the bee suit. So, Scott, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, no, it's this is a great opportunity. We want people to be aware of what's happening with bees, and not only bees, but all pollinators, because we really are incredibly dependent on pollinators. And I think you will attest, and maybe even the cameraman will attest that you've got to respect nature.
Yeah.
Mother Nature teaches you two things: tough love and patience.
Most definitely.
And we moved here so we could take our hoods off, because I don't think if we were over there with
Impossible.
these hoods off,
It was just thousands of bees.
Yeah,
it was.
And they're a little bit. I don't want to call them mean girls, but let's just call them spicy. They're a little spicy today.
Okay.
And that's fine, because they're doing exactly what nature has intended them to do: is protect their colony.
Yeah, I think one of them was actually Scary Spice, because it scared me away from there. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
and in your time with bees, too, it's time when it's like,
it's time to go.
Yeah.
When they get riled up like that, it's just you know it's time to go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for inviting us, and maybe we'll come back at another time when you actually draw some honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. When do you normally draw your
So
honey?
we usually do two extractions a year. We usually do one. It's spring honey that we harvest in summer, and then summer honey that we harvest in fall. But this year it's a little bit difficult, because there's a few things that are going on that is new to me, at least. The first thing is I try to let the bees have as much honey as possible, because I want them to get through
the winter. Sure.
And I don't want to feed them, getting ready. I want them to have their honey. And the second thing is, and this is crazy, and this is the first year I've seen them, and I've seen them all over the farm, is the lanternfly, the spotted lanternfly.
Yes, yeah. That actually had an effect on the bees, or
It affects the honey.
Ooh.
It makes the honey taste different.
How is that?
Well, so bees go out and collect nectar.
Yes.
And nectar is typically out of the flowers, but the spotted lanternfly gives off a type of a sap. It's what they process. And I to be quite honest, this is new to me, because I'm learning about this now.
Well, the lanternflies are new to everybody. I mean, 2 years ago, there was no such thing. They were just in Pennsylvania, and then they were in North Maryland, and now they're here in Culpeper. I see them everywhere.
Yeah, and this is the first year I've seen them on the farm. But it's an invasive species. The bees are actually collecting some of the sap / nectar, or sometimes they will call it forest honey, because bees have done this with other insects before, like in Europe. But it changes the taste of the honey, because it's not nectar flower based honey. It is based on the lanternfly, what products it has, or because lanternflies live off sap off the trees.
Right. Yeah.
So instead of harvesting honey and then finding out it tastes funny, I'm just going to let the bees have the honey. Because for them, it's fine for them.
Well, and they needed them to make it through the winter too.
Yeah, and what I'll do is like that one where we took the honey super off, where they had so much honey.
Yes.
What I'll do is I'll take the bees, I'll take that honey that they harvested, and then I'll separate it out, and I'll give all the hives, because we have a lot of hives. We'll share the wealth with all the hives, make sure they have enough to get through winter, and if we have to supplement feed, we'll do so.
Well, again, thanks again, Scott, for allowing us to come and get stung.
Yeah, well, like I said,
I actually got stung, ladies and gentlemen. I actually got stung.
Well, I got stung too.
Yeah. But it happens. So when you don't tighten the suit up all the way, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining us, and hopefully you come see us and check out our other episodes. Again, Don Haight, Virginia Outdoors, Farmer D. Thank you.